why your soft girl era is the most dangerous thing you'll ever do, and why you should do it anyway. Good evening. I want to start by telling you about someone who is quietly dismantling everything we've been taught about strength, success, and survival. Her name is Dawnn Marie Pirani Brumfield, and she is not just a leader, she is a revolutionary. Dawn Marie is reshaping the conversation around what it means to be a Black woman in professional spaces, in personal relationships, in faith communities, and in the sacred, terrifying act of choosing yourself. She is creating pathways for women who have spent decades, literal decades, in survival mode to finally unapologetically step into their softness. In her insights, they challenge everything. Everything we've been taught about resilience, everything we've been told about what it takes to thrive, everything we've been conditioned to believe about our worth. Today, I want to share with you the transformative wisdom she offered me. Wisdom that has the power to change not just individual lives, but entire communities, entire systems, entire generations. Let me start with something that might surprise you, something that might even make you uncomfortable. We live in a world that tells Black women, especially high achieving Black women, that success requires an armor, that to lead, to excel, to survive, you must be unbreakable, tough, resilient, always on, always strong, always ready. The message is clear, isn't it? Softness is a luxury you cannot afford. Vulnerability is a weakness you cannot show. And rest is for people who haven't earned their place at the table yet. Rest is for people who don't have bills to pay, children to raise, teams to lead, communities to hold up. But here's what Dawn Marie shared with me. And I need you to really hear this because it stopped me in my tracks. Embracing your soft girl era and as a Black professional is not an act of weakness or passivity. It is a radical act of self definition and power. Let that sink in for a moment. Really let it sink in. Softness, empty, and power. This idea disrupts everything we've been conditioned to believe. For so long, we've equated strength with endurance, with the ability to keep going no matter the cost. We've celebrated the superwoman, the one who holds down the household, leads the team, raises the children, supports the community, shows up for everyone, and never, ever complains. We've made heroes out of exhaustion. We've turned burnout into a badge of honor. We've glorified the grind. We've worshiped at the altar of I got it. We've convinced ourselves that needing help is a sign of failure. But what if the truest form of strength is not in how much you can carry, but in your courage to put something down? What if real power lies not in your ability to endure, but in your willingness to be honest about what you need? What if the most revolutionary thing you could do right now in this moment is to give yourself permission to be soft? Dawn Marie's insights reveal three profound truths that I believe every one of us needs to hear. And these truths are not abstract theories pulled from some academic journal. They are grounded in real stories, real women, real transformations. They are grounded in the lives of women who dared to disrupt the narratives that were written for them. The first truth is this: softness is strength. Let me tell you about a woman named Captain Coon. Captain Coon is an African American woman who has dedicated over 3 decades, more than 30 years, to Navy medicine. She began her career in 1991 as a hospital corpsman, and she rose through the ranks to become an executive officer, navigating one of the most male dominated, hierarchical, rigid environments in the world. She was often the only Black woman at the table, the only Black woman in the room, the only Black woman making decisions that would shape policy, strengthen operational readiness, and advance healthcare delivery across the entire Navy. And here's what's remarkable. Here's what makes her story so powerful. Captain Coon did not succeed by pretending to be someone she wasn't. She did not succeed by adopting the rigid, emotionless, stoic leadership style that was modeled around her. She succeeded by committing to lifelong learning, by leading with empathy, and by advocating fiercely for diversity and leadership. She succeeded by integrating all aspects of her identity, her Blackness, her womanhood, her authenticity into her work. She succeeded by being soft in a system that demanded hardness. Think about that for a moment. She was soft in a system that demanded hardness. And the impact, she didn't just advance her own career. She didn't just climb the ladder and close the door behind her. She paved the way for other Black women in military medicine. She demonstrated that authentic leadership, leadership that honors your full identity, can drive systemic change. She led large teams. She directed pandemic response units. She received multiple military commendations, and she did it all while refusing to shrink, refusing to compartmentalize, refusing to be anything other than her whole self. Captain Kuhn's story teaches us that softness is not the absence of strength. Softness is the presence of courage. It is the courage to lead with empathy in a world that rewards dominance. It is the courage to be vulnerable in a culture that punishes emotion. It is the courage to show up as your whole self, even when the system tells you to shrink, even when the culture tells you to conform, even when the world tells you that your softness is a liability. The second truth Dawn Marie shared is this: living in your truth is a journey, and it is not an easy one. True alignment, true freedom comes from questioning whose expectations you are living by and having the courage to rewrite your own narrative, even if it disrupts familiar roles or relationships, even if it makes people uncomfortable, even if it costs you something. Let me introduce you to Dr. Jane Onyango. Dr. Onyango is a Black nurse researcher who recently received the 2025 Nursing for Women's Health Excellence in Writing Award for her groundbreaking work on the experiences of intimate partner violence among mothers who use substances. Her research centers the voices of women who are often marginalized, stigmatized, ignored, and dismissed. She has built her career on a foundation of public health, advanced degrees, and an unwavering commitment to health equity. But here's what makes her story so powerful. Dr. Onyango did not just study disparities from a safe distance. She lived them. She overcame barriers as a Black woman in academia, barriers that told her she didn't belong, that her voice didn't matter, that her research wasn't important, that her perspective was too narrow, too specific, too niche. And instead of accepting those narratives, instead of internalizing those messages, she chose to rewrite them. She chose to center marginalized voices in her research. She chose to advocate for evidence based protocols to combat disparities. She chose to mentor emerging Black nurse leaders. She chose to use her voice, her platform, her expertise to challenge and change systemic inequities. And the outcome? She influenced national discussions on maternal health equity. She improved protocols for underserved populations. She inspired a new generation of nurse researchers. She became a nationally recognized leader in diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. She didn't just change her own life, she changed the trajectory of an entire field. Dr. Anyango's story reminds us that living in your truth is not a one time decision, it is a daily practice. It is a journey of questioning, unlearning, and redefining. It is a journey that requires you to disrupt the roles others have assigned to you, even when those roles feel safe, even when those roles feel familiar, even when those roles have been your identity for so long that you don't know who you are without them. The third truth is this: integration is liberation. Embracing all aspects of your identity, your faith, your family, your body, your relationships, your ambitions, your past, your present, your dreams, creates a foundation for sustainable success and well being, both personally and professionally. Let me tell you about a woman named Dawnn Marie. Dawnn Marie was a WWE entertainer who gained fame as a bold, sensational performer. She was in the spotlight, living a life that millions of people watched and admired. She had fame, she had recognition, she had a platform, but something inside her knew that this wasn't her truth. This wasn't her path. This wasn't the life she was meant to live. And so she made a decision that shocked everyone. She left the spotlight. She pursued further education. She embraced vulnerability. And she transitioned to a career in nursing in New Jersey. Think about that for a moment. She went from performing in front of thousands to serving patients one on one. She went from fame to purpose. She went from living by others' expectations to living by her own values. She went from being who the world told her to being who she knew she was meant to be. And the impact? She established herself as a respected nurse, serving her community and advocating for patient care. She became a living example of radical self reinvention. She showed the world that it is never too late to choose yourself. It is never too late to integrate all the parts of who you are into a life that feels whole, authentic, and deeply fulfilling. It is never too late to say, this is not my truth, and I am brave enough to walk away from it. Dawn Marie's story teaches us that integration is not about perfection, it is about honesty. It is about bringing all of who you are, the bold and the soft, the public and the private, the past and the present, the sacred and the messy into alignment. It is about refusing to compartmentalize your identity to make others comfortable. It is about refusing to shrink so that others can feel big. It is about refusing to hide so that others can feel safe. Now, here's where this gets really interesting. Here's where this gets disruptive. All three of these women, Captain Kuhn, Dr. Anyango, Dawn Marie, made choices that disrupted the narratives others had written for them. They chose softness in systems that demanded hardness. They chose authenticity in cultures that rewarded conformity. They chose integration in environments that required compartmentalization. They chose truth in space that demanded silence. And every single one of them not only survived, that they thrived. They didn't just advance their own lives, they transformed entire systems. They paved pathways for others. They made the world better, not by being harder, but by being softer, not by doing more, but by being more honest, not by carrying more, but by putting something down. So why do we still resist this? Why do we still believe that softness is a liability? Why do we still equate vulnerability with weakness? Why do we still think that rest is something we have to earn? Why do we still believe that our value is tied to our productivity? Why do we still measure our worth by how much we can endure? Why do we still think that our strength is proven by how little we need? I think it's because we've been taught that our value is conditional, that our worth is up for debate, that our strength must be constantly proven, that our place at the table is fragile, that our safety is dependent on our silence, that our survival is dependent on our sacrifice. But Dawn Marie's insights and the stories of these incredible women tell us something different. They tell us that your value is inherent, your worth is not up for debate, and your strength is not diminished by your need for rest, for softness, for truth, for vulnerability, for joy, for peace. In fact, your strength is amplified by it. So here's what I want to leave you with. Here's the question that I believe has the power to change everything. Here's the question that Dawn Marie asked me, and the question I now ask you. What would it look like for you to unapologetically live in your own truth, even if it disrupts others' expectations? And how might embracing your own soft girl era unlock new levels of freedom and fulfillment in your personal and professional life? What role are you carrying that no longer fits? What mask are you wearing that no longer serves you? What cape are you holding on to that is weighing you down? What expectation are you living by that was never yours to begin with? And what would happen? What would truly happen if you chose to put it down? If you chose to be soft, if you chose to be honest, if you chose to rest, if you chose to integrate, if you chose to live in your truth? I believe with everything in me that the world does not need more women who are unbreakable. The world needs more women who are brave enough to be soft, who are courageous enough to be vulnerable, who are bold enough to live in their truth, even when it disrupts everything around them, who are willing to say, I am not going to carry this anymore. I'm not going to shrink anymore. I'm not going to hide anymore. I'm not going to sacrifice my peace for your comfort anymore, because that is where the real transformation begins. That is where liberation lives. That is where you reclaim your joy, your rest, your freedom without guilt, without apology, and without explanation. So I invite you right now to take a breath, to give yourself permission to step into your soft girl era, not because you've earned it, but because you deserve it, simply because you exist, simply because you are here, simply because you are worthy. And here's my challenge to you. Here's my call to action. Starting today, starting right now, I want you to identify one thing, just one thing that you are carrying that is not yours to carry. One expectation that was placed on you that you never agreed to. One role that you are playing that no longer aligns with who you are becoming. And I want you to put it down. I want you to release it. I want you to choose yourself. And then I want you to share your truth. I want you to tell someone, I am choosing softness. I am choosing rest. I am choosing me. Because when you do that, you give permission to someone else to do the same. You create a ripple. You start a revolution. The world is waiting for you to be soft. The world is waiting for you to be free. The world is waiting for you to live in your truth. So, what are you waiting for? Thank you.